listening, being understanding, good listener, listening skills. So this is the biggest one here. So this tells me that most of you said listening skills, good communication. Yes, listen and be patient, listen and kind, open-minded, flexible. Y'all don't even need this training. You already know a lot of what I'm going to talk about, but this is good. This means you have a really solid foundation of what is required to be a good mentor. So I hope I can just help you dial that up a little bit. So a mentorship is when there's a supportive relationship where there's an experienced person who's the mentor and there's a less experienced person who's the mentee. The mentorship is about sharing knowledge, providing encouragement, and helping your mentee navigate challenges. So a lot of you brought up that was your experience with your mentor, or if you didn't have one, that is what you would have liked. So a mentor is both a trusted advisor and a role model. You're not completely responsible for every decision they make into life. We're going to talk about boundaries later, but they should be able to trust you and look up to you. And you might say, well, okay, well, a mentor is somebody who's very experienced and we are AmeriCorps, we are teenagers. But this is a value add that you bring. You don't have to be in your 40s to be a good mentor. So teenagers and kids, there's actually research that shows that teenagers can be great mentors for kids who are in kindergarten to like 8th grade because you're more relatable to them. You have more recent life experience that is similar to them, especially with technology and culture changes. What it was like when I was a kid is a lot different than it is now for kids. And you guys have a smaller gap in what it was like to be their age at this point in time. You can bring them a hope in a way of letting them see what this bridge between childhood and adulthood is, because y'all are teenagers. A lot of you are under 18, but that doesn't mean you're not really a child anymore either. You're on that bridge on the in-between. You can give peer-to-peer learning where kids might be more receptive to learning from you. And it's mutually beneficial because nothing enhances your own skills like having to teach it. My statistics skills are sharpest when I'm teaching statistics at universities or psychology or whatever it is that I'm currently teaching, because it helps you know what you have to be talking about, because people ask questions and you want to be able to support them. And I know you're teaching them socio-emotional learning skills, but mentoring by nature also requires you to practice and keep yours sharp as well. You can provide a fresh perspective that maybe an older mentor might not have thought of. And again, they might be more engaged and involved because they see you as more relatable and you're still cool to them. Sometimes the older adults like us, they're like, yeah, whatever. So there's a lot of value that you bring. And so I'm really glad that y'all are here and interested in pursuing this with AmeriCorps. So I'm going to talk about 3 sets of skills today, some of which y'all already brought up. We're going to go over building trust and rapport, effective communication strategies, and creating a safe and supportive environment. And for each of these 3, I'm going to go over specific skill sets. And after each section, we're going to have a little quiz. The quiz is not going to be, sent to anyone and held against you in a grade. It's just to show me if you're understanding the material and to help you practice so that you can transfer your knowledge to what you're doing with your mentee. Okay, so just don't worry. I won't know who answered what. It's anonymous. You're not going to get, this isn't going to affect your job. This is just to show if the material makes sense. So what does it mean to build trust and rapport? So trust is it's like building a bridge between you and your mentee that they know they can safely cross and come to you with questions. They can come to share their thoughts, their feelings, and they know that they can trust you to keep their secrets within reason. We're going to talk a little bit more about confidentiality later, but they should be able to come and tell you things and not worry that you're going to, they should be able to tell you, like, I'm upset with someone at school, and not worry that you're going to go tell that person, hey, did you hear what Kaylin said about you? We don't want to be doing that. We want them to trust that you will keep their secrets unless they are in danger. And they want to know they can count on you to be there, that you can give honest advice, and that you're not going to judge them. So that's trust. Now, rapport is more like the vibe, the connection between you and your mentee. It's that if they like you, if they feel comfortable, if they're at ease around you, does the conversation flow naturally? Is it all really serious, or is it okay to make, an appropriate joke every now and then? It's feeling like you're on the same wavelength as somebody and making it easier to work together. So we want both of those things between mentors and mentees, but these things do take time. It's not going to happen instantly. And there's 3 things that can help you build this are to 1, develop your active listening skills, 2, show empathy and understanding, and 3, be consistent and reliable. So active listening, this is an important life skill. I am still teaching adults to do this when I'm consulting at large companies. It is when you're listening to someone and you're actually fully engaged. You're not thinking about what you're going to say in response. You're not thinking about what you're going to do later in that day. You are giving your full attention, and your body shows that. If you're covered like this, with your arms crossed and you're looking away, that tells somebody you're not really paying attention. That sends that cue. So you want to have an open posture. You want to make eye contact with them, be nodding your head, and you can even make some auditory sounds like because it shows that you're listening. You don't want to interrupt them, let them talk, and paraphrase. So this is the one that the adults get stuck on. Because if you've ever talked to someone, you've been like, you're not even listening to me. And they're like, yeah, I was. And you're like, really, what did I just say? And they repeat it back word for word. You know that they weren't really listening. They had an earworm that they just heard that last bit. Paraphrasing is when you say back to someone what they said, but in your own words. So if somebody says, I went to the supermarket, and they said, and you paraphrase back, you say, yeah, you were just telling me about how you went to the store. You didn't use it word for word. You showed that you heard the information and you applied your own words. And that's how you show that you understood. When you paraphrase to someone, you give the opportunity for them to say, no, that's not what I meant. Let me clarify. Because how you heard it might have been different than how they intended to say it. And this is one of the most important communication skills, is clarifying that gap, because a communication can never be 100%. So sometimes we have to check in with somebody and say, okay, what I hear you saying is ABC. And they can say, no, I meant ABD. And then you can prevent issues in the future. If you don't understand, or even if you think you do, but you want to make sure, ask clarifying questions. So you can say, when that person hurt you at school, did you mean emotionally or did they physically harm you? You can ask clarifying questions to make sure you understand their situation. And avoid judgment. Try to control your face. I'm pretty good at controlling my mouth, but my face, that one's harder. So if they're telling you something, try to keep a neutral, open expression, because even if you don't agree with it, this is your mentee, and you want to make sure that you are listening to them to know their situation. And especially if it's something that would need help with or danger, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to them. To show empathy and understanding, validate their feelings. That is different than agreeing with them. Validating just means that you hear them, that it's okay that they feel that way. If they tell you they're angry, you don't have to agree that being angry is good. You can just say, I understand that you're angry, or I hear that you are angry. And that helps people feel heard, and that builds rapport and helps you get to understand them. You can share similar experiences, but do this carefully. Make sure it's an appropriate response. And you don't want to make the mentor session about you. You want to make it about them. But sometimes sharing just a little bit can make them feel less alone. Being like, hey, I've had a similar situation at school. And so I understand why that's bothering you. Use empathetic phrases like, I hear you, tell me more. How do you feel about that? These show that you care and that you're invested in them. Avoid minimizing their experiences. So this is saying things like, that's not a big deal. Or, well, everybody has that. It dismisses them. So go for the empathetic instead of dismissive. And practice perspective taking. You may not have had the similar experience, or you may have responded differently than them. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. Just try to see things from their perspective. And if you're having a hard time seeing that perspective, it's probably time to ask them some more questions. And finally, to build trust and rapport, you got to be consistent and reliable. Show up on time for those sessions. Keep your commitments. If you tell them you're going to meet every week, make sure you're doing it. Stay in regular contact. It's hard to build rapport with somebody when you only see them every now and then. Trying to make sure you have a regular schedule going on. I know y'all had that hurricane at the beginning of the year and that made it hard. So do what you can within environmental disasters. Stick to your agreed meeting times whenever possible. Be present when you're there. Don't be playing on your phone or doing other things or crocheting. Like, be present. Take a moment, just focus on them for that time. Set clear expectations in the beginning about what mentoring is and what it isn't. I'm going to share with y'all a suggested slide at the end of boundaries that you can set. And I think Tracy usually sends these slides around after, so I'll make sure you get a copy. Communicate what your role is and your boundaries, and always be honest with them. You know, trust is built on honesty. It's not built on lies. A lot of you brought up communication when I asked about mentoring skills in the beginning. So I think a lot of you know what this is, that communication is the tool that you need to do anything. We put a lot of emphasis on hard skills and what you learn on the job or in school or in college. But without communication, y'all, I have worked with people in big four firms up here in the DC area who do not know how to communicate. And they can go to some of the best schools in the world. And if they don't know how to communicate, they struggle at work. So it's one of the most important skills you can have. And with a mentor-mentee relationship, it's built on communication, because you can't have trust and rapport without it. You can't put them in a safe environment without it. So it helps you understand each other and minimize confusion. It helps your mentee feel heard and valued. It helps keep things interesting because you have new things to talk about. It helps them tackle tough topics, and it helps you build trust. So some things to keep in mind to have effective communication is you want to have age-appropriate language, you want to be aware of your nonverbal communication, and you want to ask open-ended questions. So when you're working with younger kids, keep in mind if the language is age-appropriate. And I don't just mean not using profanity, though please don't, they're children. And I say that as an adult who uses a lot of profanity. We got to dial it back around the kids. So adjust your vocabulary to meet their age, but also their comprehension level. They have not been speaking your language as long as you have. They don't know all the jargon that is cool in high school right now. They need simpler words because they have not been speaking English long, especially if they're only in kindergarten. Gradually introduce more complex terms as they get older, 6th grade to 8th grade. And if they ask you what something means, explain in different words. Don't just repeat the same thing. Paraphrase again, because maybe they'll understand it in a different way. Avoid slang or terms that maybe you use in high school that they haven't learned yet because they're still in elementary school. And if they watch their body language, look if they seem a little confused, and ask them, does that make sense to you? And, ask it in a tone that doesn't sound like, does that make sense? Like, don't make them feel stupid. Just ask them, did you understand? Or do I need to clarify? And be prepared to explain in different words if needed. And your nonverbal communication here is still important. We just talked about this a little bit, but keep eye contact with them, nod your head, smile, have good facial expressions. Don't look at them like they're crazy or that you're judging them. Have your posture open. This is a hard one for me because I tend to do this because I think it's comfortable, but it shows people that you're blocked off. So when you're with your mentee, open up your posture. Match your tone to be calm, enthusiastic, or serious. If they're telling you something that's upsetting them, don't just talk to them like Mickey Mouse, right? Like, you can adjust your tone to say, oh, wow, that's really tough. Kind of lower your voice. Use gestures within reason to emphasize your points. I already talk with my hands. I think a lot of people in Perry talk with their hands. I think that's a Southern thing. You don't need to overdo it, but it shows that you're engaged, right? And you're listening to them. And pay attention to their cues. If they're blocked off, ask them. Say, hey, you seem uncomfortable today. Is everything okay? If they won't make eye contact with you, ask about that. So it shows you've set your boundaries in the beginning. Ask them what their boundaries are. Or maybe they feel like you're sitting too close to them. Maybe that's a problem. Ask them what they're comfortable with. And finally, ask open-ended questions. So open-ended questions are questions that cannot be answered with yes or no. So these are questions that usually start with how, what, why, and tell me about. Those help conversations flow. If you ask someone, did you have a good day? They can just say, yes. And that's it. That's the conversation. An open-ended question is saying, what was the best part of your day? This opens the door for more conversation. How did you feel about that when it happened? Tell me more about your interest in whatever they were just talking about. And this is a good life skill too. This is good for networking. This is good for your personal relationships. I use this all the time in research to ask open-ended questions so that you learn more about people. And don't ask them a bunch of questions back to back. Give them time to think about it and respond. And when they do respond, follow up, ask those clarifying questions, show that you're interested. And balance the questions with your own input. Share just a little bit about yourself because that's how you build rapport. Make sure it's an appropriate topic, what you're talking about, and don't skew the conversation to be all about you. But people don't open up to us if we never open up at all. So if they tell you that they love playing video games, you can share if you like what your favorite video game is. That helps make the conversation more natural. All right. Last set of skills, creating a safe and supportive environment. Safe and supportive environment is where they know that they are in a no judgment zone. They're completely comfortable. They feel respected, heard, and valued. Your mentee knows that they can share their thoughts and feelings with you and that you're not going to make fun of them, that you're not going to judge them. And this is where the trust really grows. And even that it's okay to make mistakes. And this is also important. Even the healthiest work environments, it needs to be okay to make mistakes within reason. Obviously, we don't want pilots who make mistakes, okay? But a lot of us have to make mistakes to learn. We all, when learning how to walk, had to fall down a bunch of times. And that's how you learn to get steady on your feet. So you want a safe and supportive environment, and it's building the foundation that's going to support your mentor-mentee relationship for the entire time that it exists. So to do that, we want to create a no judgment zone. We want to keep it mostly confidential. We want to set some ground rules together. And of course, as many of you said in the beginning, you want to encourage them. So to create a no judgment zone, let your mentee know that it is okay to be themselves. They don't have to be cool around you. They don't have to be who they think you want them to be. They can just be themselves. Never make fun of their feelings or ideas. Never make fun of them. You can propose counter ideas. You can tell them, you can validate their feelings, but don't make fun of them. Show them that it is actually cool to try new things, even if they mess up. That is how we learn. Keep it mostly confidential, that what they tell you stays between the two of you. Don't go tell the rest of AmeriCorps, don't go tell their classmates. But if they're in danger or it's something that you feel like an adult should know, tell a trusted adult, whether that's your classroom manager, your program manager. Tell someone in AmeriCorps who's an adult and ask them for advice. And always explain to your student, your mentee, if you need to share something that they told you. Say, this is something that I think is really serious that we need to take to an adult, and encourage them to bring it to the adult as well. And if they don't feel comfortable by themselves, you can tell the adult with them. And if they really don't feel comfortable with it, then you can just tell the adult yourself, but at least you're building the trust and being transparent with your mentee before you do that. And explain to them that this is only because it's for their own safety. And this should be a boundary that you tell them at the beginning of the relationship so that this is not a surprise. Set some ground rules together. Notice I started even this training with ground rules, and that's to show respect to each other. Okay, you make your ground rules like respecting each other and not putting each other down. If you're gonna, how you're gonna deal with disagreements, things like that. Well, one person speaks at a time. They can be very simple things that seem obvious to you, but different cultures have different versions of what is considered respectful. Something that I hear a lot with adults is people think there's one way to have dining etiquette, for example. They think it's really rude if you don't know what to do with two different forks by your plate. While in other cultures, like you would never have two forks by your plate. So things that we assume are normal and just common respect, they're not. So talk with your mentee about what you're comfortable with, learn what they think respect means, and then you can set those rules together. And then make sure you follow those rules too, because you don't want to abuse the power and balance of just because you're older. You want to show them that you're respectful to them as well. Nobody likes a hypocrite. And as all of you said at the beginning, when I asked what are the skills of a good mentor, encourage them, be their cheerleader, cheer for their efforts, help them see their own strengths. Don't just cheer for them when they're successful, cheer for them that they tried. It was something in Silicon Valley where, Apple and Android and all of that is made. And Silicon Valley, one of their mantras is fail fast because then you learn quicker. So be their cheerleader and encourage them that that is how you get on your feet, literally, when you're a baby, is by falling down. We know it's not always easy. The most difficult thing in the world is human relationships, and the most powerful thing in the world is human relationships. And that doesn't change in mentor-mentee dynamics. So some of the main challenges for these relationships are a lack of engagement or interest from the mentee, difficulty in building trust, having communication breakdowns, having boundary issues like the mentee becoming too dependent or attached, conflicting schedules or frequent cancellations, cultural or even generational misunderstandings, mentees having personal or family issues, or unrealistic expectations from either party. And some problem-solving strategies that can help with this are having open communication, active listening, like we've already talked about, flexibility and patience. Y'all mentioned that at the beginning as a mentor skill as well. Seeking support, setting clear expectations and boundaries, focusing on strengths and interests, and being persistent, but knowing when to step back. So open communication, we just had a section on communication strategies. Make sure you use them. Don't let issues quietly fester. A lot of people do this to avoid conflict, but that just delays it. Conflict is inevitable. If you notice something's wrong, ask them. And do it sensitively. Use I statements to express concern instead of attacking them with you. So you can say, like, I've noticed we've had trouble meeting lately. Is everything okay? Don't just notice that they haven't been showing up and just let it go on. Active listening, we talked about this a lot, but it is so important. Active listening is important for understanding what is the root cause of the problem. Why are they not missing the sessions? Is it because something's wrong with their personal life, or do they not like what's going on? Do they not like the sessions? Do they not feel comfortable? So try to understand the root problem and ask those open-ended questions to try to get down to it. How do you feel about our mentoring sessions? Try to get a sense of what the issue is. For flexibility and patience, this is the one y'all brought up earlier. Be willing to adjust your approach or expectations. It's not going to be always what you expect. Building a relationship takes time. So adjust to see what you can do to make that happen. For example, if they're shy, try activities that don't require as much talking. I know you'll have those sheets that you use for the socio-emotional learning. If maybe start with asking them to point to different parts of it, or to draw something, for example, if they're really shy, and this will help them open up. Seek support when you need it. Everybody needs help every now and then. If you're having trouble, consult with your program coordinator, consult with an adult. Don't hesitate to ask for guidance. You can say, I'm having trouble connecting with my mentee. Do you have a moment to give me some advice, or do you have any advice? Because, even adults don't know what to do all the time. And a lot of you have probably already figured that out. Everybody has to ask for help. The people who don't do well are the ones that never do. Remember, fail fast, you can recover. Set clear expectations and boundaries. I've alluded to this a few times, but keep those ground rules that you have for your mentee, revisit and revise them as needed. If something wasn't working for you, or if one of you violated one of them, if it was you, apologize and recommit to doing better. If it was the mentee, hold them accountable. Say, hey, we agreed that we weren't going to call each other names, so I don't appreciate that. Let's move forward being respectful. And be kind but firm when you reinforce them. So you can say, hey, I really care about you, but I can't be available 24/7. So let's stick to our agreed meeting times. I'm really committed to that. And it's important to talk about what mentorship is and what it is not. It is providing guidance and support. It is sharing experiences and insight. It is encouraging their personal and academic growth. It is helping them set and work towards their goals. It is being a positive role model. It is active listening and offering encouragement. It is helping them develop problem solving skills, and it is introducing new perspectives and possibilities. It is not therapy or counseling. It is not being their parent or guardian. It is not tutoring or formal academic instruction. It's not a friendship with no boundaries, and there should never be a friendship with no boundaries. Every relationship has boundaries. It is not solving all their problems or making decisions for them. It's not giving them material support like money or expensive gifts. It's not being a replacement for a mental health service. It's not taking on their legal or personal responsibilities, and it's not a way for either you or the mentee to impose your personal beliefs on another person. So this is the one that I encourage you to keep in mind when Tracy sends out the slides of if you ever feel like you're in a situation where something is not appropriate for your relationship, revisit and ask yourself these questions, and also ask your program coordinator. But these are things to keep in mind when you set your ground rules with your mentee to help prevent getting to this point. You do want to focus on their strengths and interests. Find activities that they engage in and use their interests as a bridge to talk about other things. So if they love to play video games, for example, you can use that to discuss problem solving or storytelling, since those are components in video games. Find something that interests them and run with it. It'll also help you meet them at that age appropriate language. Be persistent, but know when it's time to step back. Don't give up easily. Be flexible, be adaptable, try new methods, but if it's not working, it's not working. And I've had to do this before, and it's sad, but usually you can make it work. But there have been, I think, 2 times, oh no, just 1 time that I've had to get reassigned a mentee because we just weren't clicking no matter what I did. So discuss concerns with your program coordinators. After you've tried your own approach, try to implement their advice. And after you've tried multiple different strategies, you might need to kindly say, I want to make sure you're getting the most you can out of this program. Well, maybe we should discuss if there's a better fit. But talk to your program coordinator before you do this.